What's up, everybody? Welcome into SBR Videos and SBR Sports Fix. I'm Jeff Nadeau, aka the Big Man on Campus, here with another video. Today, we're taking a look at some championship boxing. Showtime, 9 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. The big fight: Jessie Vargas and Adrien Broner. He makes his return. The much heralded, much talked about Adrien Broner. We'll get into that. Gervonta Davis also defends the junior lightweight title against Jesus Cuellar, and actually, it was taken from the IBF, but either way, we'll get into it. Hugo Centeno against Charlo. Lot to talk about. I welcome in boxing expert, big, one of our favorite colleagues from the Corner podcast. He also is a contributor at Yahoo, The Root, and Ring TV. Andreas Hale, a longtime guest. How you doing, buddy?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
Doing good. I've done some videos with you before. It's been a while, but it's great to come back and talk a little sweet science. A lot of good fights coming up, a lot of interesting fights. I want to ask you just quickly before we get into the matchups. I've talked with other people and we've chatted. Obviously, people have went away from boxing. A lot are getting into UFC, but you would agree this is a great time to start getting back involved. And there's a lot of, the heavyweight division's the strongest it's been in years. A lot of great welterweights, middleweights. Great time as far as up and comers as well. You would agree this is the perfect time to kind of get into boxing if you've went away or you're just kind of a new fan of fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the past couple of years actually been really good, especially last year was remarkable for boxing. Heavyweight boxing is back, like you mentioned. You got young talent like Errol Spence Jr., who's amazing. You got hard hitters like Gennady Golovkin. You got Canelo Alvarez. You got Terrence Crawford. I mean, through multiple weight divisions, you have great fighters, and fights are actually getting made. This is not like the Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather thing where we got to wait 6 years for a fight. So if
Right.
you like combat sports, this is a great time to get back into it. And honestly, as much as I love the UFC, it just hasn't been up to snuff for the past couple of years. So boxing is thriving. It's the perfect time to get back into it. And like this weekend, it's just a bunch of great matchups coming up.
Yeah, last 2 weeks ago, Hurd and Lara was fantastic. There's been a lot of really good fights, and it's great. Also, a lot of these fights are free. If you have Showtime, you have all these different HBO. They're free. I mean, there's not a ton of pay-per-view that you're having to pay for. You're seeing some really good fights for free, and I think a lot of people love that. It's always great when you don't have to stream stuff and things like that. But let's get into it. 3 fights, 2 of which we have to imagine, Andres, won't be particularly long, I'd imagine, or it might have some action, but I don't know that they're going to be great fights. One, there will be, and there's a lot of stuff off the, kind of off the fight game that we could chat about as well. Quickly, let's get into it. Interim WBC middleweight title. Make sure you understand what Charlo brother is fighting. There are two. Jermall and Jermell. Jermall is fighting this weekend, 26-0, 20 knockouts against Hugo Centeno Jr. And look, listen, the odds are very high for this. I mean, you got to lay, really wherever you look, whether you're looking at 5 dimes, you're looking at European books. I mean, you're laying big numbers. You're 5 dimes with Jermall Charlo. I mean, you're laying 1 to 50. You want to take Centeno 25-1. Obviously, Andreas, this is a fight that isn't going to last very long. If we've learned anything from Jermall Charlo, 4 of his last 5 have come by KO. And I think he's ready to really step up and be that next big middleweight, fight the likes of, Danny Jacobs or Gennady Golovkin or whoever. I think both these brothers are fantastic. 2 of my favorite fighters. I don't think this is going to be a long fight. We all know these young fighters, these unproven fighters, they're always hungry. And when he beat Salike last year, that was pretty impressive, or 2 years ago, whenever it was. Good caliber of fighter, but I don't expect a ton of fireworks here. I think this is a KO within like 6, maybe not even that. Where are you going with this? Is there any value whatsoever? I mean, even a knockout is fairly high. I think it's 1 to 4. Anything here that presents value?
No, the thing about Charlo is, both him and his brother have begun setting down on their punches over the last couple of years. Has developed a lot of knockouts, and Centeno's a tough guy, but he's long, but he's not very muscular. I mean, not that muscles mean anything, but you look at his build and you see a kind of lanky guy he's got a decent chin, but he's here to get beat up. Honestly, that's what it is, and Charlo's going to get the job done. I mean, he's moving up to middleweight. This thing is his second fight in middleweight now after destroying Julian Williams about a year and a half ago. So you look at what he's got up against him with Charlo and Centeno's. He's just in a ton of trouble. There's nothing really here that I can find bettable. Charlo should win. It should be relatively quick. It could drag into the later rounds. That is possible. Because Centeno, he is a tough guy, but he's just not a guy that's going to give him very many problems on the offensive end. And Charles is going to find that chin at a certain point in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, you got to lay, 1 to 4 for any kind of value. Look, maybe you have something, maybe a small bet on Charlo to win in rounds 4 to 6, maybe. That's kind of where I have the fight, but I could very well see a third round. It wouldn't surprise me if Charlo ends his fight within round 1. I mean, Charlo is obviously at a high level right now. He's fought at a fantastic level. This one shouldn't go long. And look, you're not going to prolong. You can't add any value in parlays with this. There's really no particular bet to make. It's just going to be a nice fight to see Charlo sweat a bit and get a knockout. That's really what he does. So as far as this, I think we can both agree there's no value. Let's move on to Cuellar, Gervonta Davis. Jesus Cuellar, 28-2, 21 knockouts. Gervonta Davis obviously comes in here, 19 wins, 0 losses, and 18 KOs. We do remember, though, last time Gervonta Davis fought, it was on that Floyd Mayweather Canelo Alvarez card where uh, Gervonta Davis did not make weight. He had to vacate the IBF title, and he was a little kind of off. He wasn't particularly sharp. He was able to get the job done. And I think if you read into what he discussed after the fight, I think he felt that he let down the fans. He let down Floyd Mayweather. He let down everyone. And look, Gervonta Davis is an interesting character because he's a great fighter. He's obviously very quick. He is braggadocious. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got a lot to prove, but he's already been able to do it. He wants to fight Vasyl Lomachenko someday. He wants to be the heir apparent to Floyd Mayweather. Does have a lot on his kind of on his table, but I will say this, Andreas, and I'll be interested to see if you agree. You would agree that he has the ability to either go Floyd Mayweather's way or be like the fighter we're about to talk about in Adrien Broner, who has a ton of potential, a ton of talent, but he doesn't have anything upstairs, and it's never going to be able to get the Adrien Broner where he wants. He can go one of two ways. The question is, this is not going to present him much of a challenge. He's a 1-8 favorite. You can get him by KO at 1-2, not a bad price. I would definitely consider throwing that maybe in a parlay or something. I like Gervonta Davis, obviously win by KO. He's a brawler. We know he's going to have heavy hands. He's a pit bull kind of fighter. But the question is, did the fame and money come to him too quick? At some point, is he going to let his guard down? I think he learned from the last fight, and I have a feeling you're going to agree with me here. What do you think of Gervonta Davis? Where do you see his future going?
It's funny you mentioned Broner. That was the analogy. And the other guy that I compare him to is Zab Judah. Guys with a ton of talent, and you're concerned about, where their mind's at when it comes to fight night. The fame comes very fast, and their career takes off. But then they forget the things that got them there, and they don't fight the same kind of fight. I'm a little concerned about Gervonta Davis. And even though Cuellar is, he's looked at as a guy who should get ran over, he could present a challenge. I mean, he had a split decision at Abner Mares, which was a pretty ugly fight. And he can do things that will not allow Gervonta to get off the way he wants to. But this is all contingent on Gervonta preparing properly and doing the things that he needs to do to get the job done. He is a great talent, very athletic, similar to Adrien Broner. He fights in two modes, very similar to Adrien Broner. He's very offensive or defensive minded. It's just one of the two. He doesn't really transition between the two. So if you can kind of get him off his game, it makes for an interesting fight. If you force him into a brawl and then you show him that you can take his shots, like the last fight, he kind of backs down a little bit. It gets a little creepy and strange with him. So I like Gervonta a lot. I think the kid's got a ton of talent. He can go a long way. But right now, he's ebbing on the side of Adrien Broner right now. And I need to see a little bit more, especially defensively, before I start crowning him the next big thing in boxing.
Yeah, and this is the big concern with boxing. And when you're a young fighter, you're obviously going to get the perks of being a young fighter. It's can you separate and say, and that's kind of my basis for the next breakdown. But look, Gervonta Davis shouldn't have any issues here. He should be able to get the job done. And you look at even against Francisco Fonseca, I mean, he didn't fight well at all. I don't think he was mentally in that fight. He had a lot to prove, but he was still able to get an 8th-round knockout. I still think he'll be able to. Do you think there is any value on that by knockout at minus 200?
There's a little value there because I think Gervonta has something to prove. And
Yes.
the thing about Cuellar is he's got a pretty sturdy chin. He's only been knocked out once, and like I said, he lost his other fight by split decision to Abner Mares, who's getting ready to fight another big fight. So there's some value there. I think Gervonta wants to show and prove. I think I'm not sure. I think facing Lomachenko is biting off more than you can chew, but I think he wants to show the world that he could possibly be ready for that kind of a fight. So I think he's going to go in here balls to the wall and try to get rid of his opponent. Can he do it? I don't know, but at minus 200, I think it's worth a shot.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. Obviously, a little bit more value than the Centeno Charlo fight. Let's get into the big one here. Obviously, a fight with obviously betting opportunities here. I mean, it's basically you gotta lay a small price here on Jessie Vargas, who I would really make sure you're looking around. I know at five dimes they got a better price if you like Broner. Bet 365 a little bit more reliant on Vargas here. They have him as a bit better of a price. So maybe make sure you're looking around. But big thing is we start with Broner. A lot to talk about with Adrien Broner. Obviously, he's never there mentally. He's got so much talent. He could be a great fighter. He's really you know, uh, coming into his career out of Cincinnati. He was kind of that heir apparent to Floyd Mayweather. He wanted to be Floyd Mayweather. He looked up to Mayweather, but then he kind of got into his head that I don't think he was good enough for Floyd Mayweather. He kind of started to kind of talk and be unnervy around Floyd Mayweather, and now he's at the point where I think Floyd Mayweather hates his guts, and I think that's proven. It's hard to like Adrien Broner from a fight perspective. I mean, you have to at the end of the day respect Floyd Mayweather because he is undefeated. There's nothing to respect about Adrien Broner. He's a hack. He's never won a big fight. And I have to ask you first, before we get into the breakdown, why do we put Broner up at this level of a fighter? He's not any better than Jessie Vargas. He's not any better than any of these guys. The truth of the matter is he's fought nobodies. And when he stepped up to fight, he's got his ass kicked. And that's the truth of the matter. I don't understand where he comes off so arrogant and braggadocious. I don't get it. What's the story with Broner and why does he act this way?
Controversy sells, and this guy sells tickets because he's a
True.
controversial figure. Athletically gifted, like you mentioned, mentally just not there. I mean, he's his own worst enemy. When you watch Adrien Broner fight, you see all the talent, but then you can't see him necessarily put it together. I mean, he showed great heart against Marcos Maidana, but moving up in weight, he bit off more than he could chew. Problem with that was he wasn't ready to move up. He just wasn't taking care of his body properly, where he should have moved up to 140 instead of jumping up to welterweight. That 140 is where he should be, but like you said, he loses big fights. Mikey Garcia just kind of ransacked him. Sean Porter outmuscled him and just outworked him. So there's a lot of things about Adrien Broner that you can like when you look at some of his other fights, but he's a head case. I don't know. He's a four division champion, but like people, who did he beat? There's really nobody that he really beat there, and it's kind of frightening when you look at it because he's still getting so much press. He's still getting put in these main events. However, the interesting thing is, I don't think Jessie Vargas is that good either. I don't think, as far as talent is concerned, excuse me, I just don't see Vargas as the type of guy who could knock Broner off his perch. You're looking at a guy who's solid, but I live in Vegas. I've been to a ton of Jessie Vargas fights. He's won a lot of decisions that shouldn't have went his way. He just kind of came on late with that late knockdown of Timothy Bradley. And then, getting in there and getting washed over by Manny Pacquiao, knocking out Saddam Ali was a big shock to a lot of people. But Vargas hasn't really beaten anybody either. So you're looking at two
Yeah,
guys here where the line is kind of justified. But it's interesting because both fighters need a big win.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you look at on the other side with Broner. I mean, you can agree that I thought the Adrian Granados fight was a lot closer. I think the only reason he won that fight was because it was in Cincinnati. If that fight was in Vegas, he's not winning that fight. And the Alakaderviev fight I thought was a lot closer than people think as well. Ashley Theophane a decent win, Carlos Molina, but he beat Paulie Malignaggi, but Paulie was, old at that point. I don't know that I see it with Broner. And you also have to throw into the fact that he's never focused on anything fighting. I mean, all you see him doing is talking and this Takashi 6ix9ine beef that he has now, and it's just I guess it's a ploy to sell tickets. I don't really know, but what it is doing is it's just keeping him unfocused from the fight. I mean, certain fighters. I mean, you can't get into this sort of thing, and the only person that's been able to master it has been Floyd Mayweather. He can talk, but he backs it up in the ring. Broner hasn't. He's basically just a cheap Floyd Mayweather. He hides behind his shoulder. He just picks at people. And look, Tim Bradley said it best. I mean, he kind of put it in people's heads. He's a good fighter. He just has nothing upstairs. And if you can't kind of do things in the ring, you can't think clearly, you're not going to win. And we've seen that time and time again with Adrien Broner. Would you agree that if he loses this fight, you have to imagine this is his last real opportunity? I mean, how many different times can we give this guy big fight opportunities and he fail on the big stage?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I kind of thought that after Mikey Garcia beat him, that I don't think he would have got another main event. I thought he'd be a co-main event fighter until he proves himself, he's still young, which he could possibly get it together. But I like to compare him to Zab Judah because Zab Judah was a guy who was a remarkable talent. And when he finally got on his head on straight, it was too late. Too much time had
Sure.
passed him by, and it was over. And I think Adrien Broner is in a similar situation. I think he's 28 at this point. He could still put it together, but the one thing that you pointed out, he hasn't shown any improvement with his boxing. He stays relatively flat-footed. He pot shots a lot. And he's a guy who doesn't really like to throw in between his opponent's punches. Like if you watch the Sean Porter fight, when Porter was coming in, Broner just kind of waited for Porter to be done before he threw back. So there's things in it, when Mike Stafford was training him, you could see that Broner was kind of doing what he wanted to do. So a tremendous athletic talent, but yeah, I don't know what it's going to take for him to put it together. But at this point, he can't afford to lose. And maybe in some ways he can. Maybe this Takashi 69 beef, maybe all this nonsense outside of the ring will keep him in the picture without Heyman. But I can't necessarily see him being able to afford to lose another fight, and especially not to a guy like Jessie Vargas.
Let me ask you, Tekashi 69 obviously is a guy that is, basically the rap version of Broner. Really limited talent and really just kind of goes at people to get and that sells nowadays in media. He has, according to him, $300,000 on Jessie Vargas, which I got to be honest. I mean, I know he just signed a big contract with some headphone label, but does he have $300,000 like that to just throw around? Maybe. Who are you? Who are you agreeing with? Are you going with Jessie Vargas? I know Floyd Mayweather Sr. Says that he thinks Jessie Vargas will win. Jesse, at the end of the day, we all do know he is a focused fighter. He's a veteran. He's been there before. He's an astute guy. He's really the opposite of Adrien Broner. I think a lot of people want to hate Adrien Broner. He's very hateable. I just don't think he's a very good fighter, frankly. I've already bet Jessie Vargas. I think I got it at 120. What are you going to be on in this fight, Andreas Hale?
Well, I'm actually
It
going
is
with Adrien
it
Broner,
is
and
a catch weight, by the way. It is a catch weight,
yeah, I've been
144.
I've been waffling back and forth in this fight because all the things, the criticisms about Adrien Broner, they all hold true. But when I think about it, and I think about Jessie Vargas's career, and I look at his fights, and he's a good fighter, he's a solid fighter, but he's never really wowed me. And he's not like anybody else that Broner is not. He's not the counter punching aficionado like Mikey Garcia. He's not the bull in the china shop like Charlo Porter and Marcos Maidana. He presents a guy who's kind of there to hit. And if Broner is focused, which I don't know if he is, I think he can win this fight. I think he could hurt. I think he can hurt Jesse later on in this fight. I think he can win this fight, and I think he's got the tools to do so. It's just really of a matter of him being on the offensive side, putting his punches together, and dictating the action early. The worst thing about Adrien Broner is he starts off extraordinarily late in his fights. Maybe he finally figures it out. I just don't think that Jessie Vargas, as much as I like him as a person, has the athletic ability and the tools to beat Adrien Broner in this fight. So I'm actually going with Broner.
Yeah, I'm really going to just go against Adrien Broner from a mental standpoint. I think he's talented, I really do, but I just don't think he's a very good fighter, frankly. But you're right. I mean, Vargas isn't that elite level fighter either, though. I think if you like Broner, you'd have to agree that maybe the 12th round decision by Broner is the right play. I don't know that he'll knock Vargas out. Does that have any value at plus 240?
For the 12-round decision, yeah. I mean, I don't think he's going to knock him out. Vargas has proven to be durable. I mean, Manny Pacquiao wasn't the Manny Pacquiao he once was, but he weathered whatever storm Manny brought in there. And he fought Timothy Bradley, who's not necessarily a heavy hitter either. But Jesse Vargas has a great chin, and he can withstand a little bit of punishment. So I don't think Broner will get him out of here. It's just really a matter of Broner starting things in the second round instead of the sixth. If he can do that, he could probably win this fight by decision. So I see a lot of value in the 12-round decision.
I was impressed by Vargas against Saddam Ali. I was impressed against Bradley. The right hand is pretty good. I like the power behind it. I'm going to go Vargas. I just think Broner is lost. I think he's got a lot to focus on. He needs to get right as a human being as opposed to as fighting styles and winning as well. So we're on opposite sides here. Broner for Andreas Hale. I'll go with Jessie Vargas. Also, the other two fights, tough to call. I'm not going to give anything official on Charlo Centeno. I'd predict a quick Charlo win. Maybe the round props when it'll happen, 1-3 or 4-6. I don't think he goes past 6. Gervonta and Cuellar. I think Gervonta by KO makes sense at 1-2. And I do want to get in. I have one other question for you, Andres, before we end. Any other props or plays you want to put out for the other two fights that you like?
No, man, I looked at him, and it was just I kept looking, and I was like, no,
Mhm.
there's nothing there that I like. I
No,
mean,
I
these are two
I don't
fights that
disagree
should
with
be
you.
one-sided. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree totally. One other question before we go. Amir Khan back in the ring over the weekend against Phil LaGreco. Amir Khan hasn't fought in 2 years. Actually, May will be 2 years. He had some off the ring issues with his wife. He's had some, interesting kind of run-ins. But he's fighting a guy in Phil LaGreco who's, fought fighters. He's gotten his ass kicked. I mean, he fought Errol Spence. He fought Sean Porter. He's kind of one of those, I guess you could call punching bags. But it's always tough to come off a long layoff. Amir Khan laying a big number here. Where are you at with Amir Khan?
I think Amir will be fine. I think his problem, he's a chinny guy, so guys who can punch give him problems. But other than that, I mean, Amir is a really good fighter. He's a great boxer. He controls distance well. He has a great jab. I mean, if you go back to the Danny Garcia fight, he was beating up Danny Garcia until he got hit with that left
Right.
hook. So it's really a
Right.
matter of who can touch him. And Phil is just not that guy. He doesn't have enough power to hurt him. Amir's probably going to do what he wants in this fight and look good doing it. And it's going to look like he's a contender once again when he's probably really not.
Yeah, I mean Amir Khan from Bolton, which is Manchester, right near Liverpool. So he's going to have obviously the big home English crowd. The Greco, again, he's seemingly been a punching bag for a lot of guys. You're going to have to lay 1-17 though to take Amir Khan. Just thought I'd get your opinion quickly. Great stuff, Andres, as always. Really enjoyed doing boxing stuff with you. Always great opinions, and we'll look forward to the Showtime Boxing at 9 o'clock on Showtime Saturday evening. Thanks again, Andres. Always appreciate it. I'll talk to you real soon. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.